Lately, we've been talking about inquiring and asking yourself if the stories that you really are believing are actually true. And I want to share with you a story about how I actually inquired about a time in my life when it seemed like I was just losing things and business was not going well. I was having so much discord in my relationships. Like, it was just not a good time, you guys. But I really want to share with you how I actually identified the thought or the story that was not true about myself and how I instantly dissolved it and how everything automatically fixed itself. And I want to share this with you guys because, like I said in a previous video, you have to stop telling your truth. The things that you believe have happened with your SP, stories from the past, all of that. You have to stop telling that long enough in order to see the truth of who you really are, right? So, a few years ago, as you guys know, I've started many businesses and I've always been successful, you guys. Like, that is just like the truth. I've always been successful in business. Of course, I've had ups and downs, but I've always believed that I was just a successful person, right? That was my identity. That's who I identified as, is a successful person, right? And so there was this period of time in my life a few years ago where it just seemed like out of nowhere, like nothing was going right. Nothing was going right. I was having so much discord in my relationships. It seems like every time I got to a certain point financially, or just when things or seemed to be going well, seemed like I was getting ready to hit that next threshold. Like something would happen in order for me to have to spend more money, or someone in my life had a certain problem or with me and then we fell out. It was just like just I just was like, what the heck is going on in my life, right? And this lasted for almost like a year, you guys. And so I remember one day, like I just could not fix it. I was trying to affirm the fact that my finances was getting better. I was trying to affirm that the business was successful. I was doing all these things, affirming, doing techniques, and trying to figure it out. But it wasn't until one day I was just like, you know what? I don't even know what's happening right now. So I decided to take a few days off and just was like, I don't even know. I kind of like gave up on everything. And I was like, you know what? I don't even know if I'm like meant to do this and all this stuff. Like when things are not going your way, you just kind of like, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing right now. But then this is what I mean about following your intuition, following your higher self, learning to listen to that higher perception of yourself, right? Because the answer is always present, right? But when we are identified as that separate self or the doer trying to figure everything out, we think that we're the ones that need to come up with the solution and affirming is the answer and doing all these things. But we're not asking ourselves if the stories or who we are identified with is actually the truth of who we are, right? And so I was like, I don't even know. And so I just kind of chalked it all up. And then I got the nudge to actually go on a walk. And so I was like, all right, let me just go on a walk. And I used to walk at this beautiful lake in Austin, and it was just like such a peaceful place. And I realized I haven't walked that lake in quite some time. So I decided to get up and go to the lake, and I walked the lake, and I just kind of inquired. I asked myself a question. I said, why does it seem and feel as if I'm always somehow losing? Like, I don't know what's going on. I feel like I'm just losing everything. I don't know. I'm losing my mind. I don't even know what's actually happening. So I asked the question, and then I just kind of dropped it and I just kept going on the walk. And I just was open to the answer because I realized that what I was doing was not working. The affirming wasn't working. Something was not working. And I had to realize that maybe I don't know. I don't know the answer. And because I'm not the doer, there's something that I really don't know, right? So maybe the way that I'm going about it is just not it, right? So I was learning and realizing that I may be wrong here. There's something that I may be identifying with that's just not the truth, right? So I allowed myself to say, you know what, I don't know. And that's the first step of realizing that you're not the doer, is realizing that you don't know, right? So I was going on this walk, and if you ever listen to your higher self, you know the nudges, like they come in this small, like little still voice. It's nothing that's going to be like really, really like loud and big. So it was just, I was walking, and then I got this voice in my head that said, you're losing because you believed in a loss. You believe that loss is possible. And it was just kind of like this light bulb clicked on. And I was just like, okay, all right. I didn't, feel the need to jump in automatically and try to figure it out. I allowed the answer to really reveal itself. So I kept walking. And then I got the quote from Florence Scovel where she says, "There is no lack in the divine mind." And then the quote from Frederick E. Dotson where he says, "Reality must be believed in." And I realized that I was believing in a state of loss, right? And of course, I didn't know exactly where it was coming from. So I still sat with it. I don't even know like how it appeared in my life, but I knew that if I got this answer, that somehow wherever that loss crept in would appear, like I would realize how it got here, right? And so as I was walking, I was getting ready to finish up my walk. I went and sat by the water, and I remember this one particular time in my life before all that perceived loss started happening. And I was hanging out with one of my good friends at that time, and she was going through it. And I had just hit a big success in my life, but I wasn't the person at that time to really just like be sharing all of my successes like with people. But me and this girl was like really good friends, and she was kind of getting herself together. Things were starting to go well with her and all this stuff, but she was still going through her own thing. So I was attentive of that, and I realized, okay, like I told her, I invited her out to dinner, and I was like, hey, let's go out, let's have a good night, let's chill, whatever. And everything was going good, right? But then she was sharing with me some of the things that she was going through, and I don't know, it just kind of seemed like something took a wrong turn. And then she kind of went off on me. I realized that now that it was a projection, and she was had a lot going on in her life. And I remember she said something because someone came up to me and they complimented me, right? And then she said, you think you have it all. Like, everything always works out for you. And then she started projecting, saying, good things don't last long. And it was just projection after projection after projection. Well, now I know it was projection, but I was taken aback and I was hurt about what she was saying about me. And I was like, what? Why is she saying all these things to me? Like, I thought that, we were good friends and all this stuff. And so I was really hurt about it. And I was just like, wow, like she really thinks that, I think that I'm all that and all this stuff. And, so whatever, like I got up and I pretty much left. And what I realize now, that was that moment of that buy in where I bought into the belief that loss was possible, or that me being successful could somehow cause loss to others or loss to myself, right? Because the truth is, you guys, like I talked about in a previous video, it wasn't the initial thought about what she said. It wasn't even about what she said, but it was the thoughts that I had about it afterwards, and the thoughts that came about. And all this was being revealed to me as I was just sitting there at the lake. It just kind of revealed itself to me, right? The answer was there. I just wasn't, looking before. And I was thinking during this time, I was like, OMG, like I'm a bad person. And it led me down to this path of every time I thought about what she was saying to me, I started believing it more and more and more, right? And so I really started thinking that me having success will make others think something bad about me, and it will affect all my friendships. My friends will get jealous of me. My relationships will suffer because of my success. And that's how I started to think, because wow, if she was really thinking all that about me, there must be something that I'm doing wrong. And then I thought about it as I was sitting at that lake and this was being revealed to me. Because I had believed in loss in my reality, prior to that, I never once believed that I could lose. I had to buy into it, because prior to all of that in business, loss never was an option. It never crept into my mind at all. I never once ever identified with loss prior to that, which was why I was successful for so long. And I was like, why, like at this point in time in my life, like after that conversation that I had with her and we fell out and everything, like why it seemed like everything was just happening one after the other. I was having discord with friends, and every time I got ready to hit a certain peak in business, a friend would come out of nowhere and say something to me, would do something kind of horrible or show some sort of jealousy, or there was discord in relationships, discord in business relationships. It was just like every single time, right? But it was from the buy-in of the belief about the thoughts that she was saying. It wasn't the initial thought, it was my thoughts about that which created the belief that I could lose or that loss was possible. So I believed in loss in my reality. And so it showed itself when it was never an option before, right? And so I want to share with you guys A Course in Miracles. We haven't talked about A Course in Miracles in a while, but I want to share this passage with you. It is lesson 73, and it says that idle wishes and grievances are partners or co makers in picturing the world you see. The wishes of the ego gave rise to it, and the ego's need for grievances, which are necessary to maintain it, peoples it with figures that seem to attack you and call for righteous judgment. These figures become the middleman the ego employs to traffic grievances. They stand between your awareness and your brother's reality. Beholding them, you do not know your brothers or yourself, and your will is lost to you in this strange bartering in which guilt is traded back and forth, and grievances increase with each exchange. So, it was me believing in that separate self, in the fact that she was somehow other like than me, my friend, or that seeing behind the picture, I got inside the story, inside that one thought that she presented to me. I bought into it. And it wasn't just that thought, but it was me entertaining the thought. So all the beliefs that came after that was what created that story of loss and apparent lack, and that me being successful would cause some sort of grievances in my relationship, and that maybe that I was a bad person for being successful. So every time I was getting ready to hit a certain goal, it would be another friend I would have grievances with, or a business relationship that I would have grievances with, or just even me in my business at that time feeling disconnected within it, right? Because I believed in loss. I believed it in my reality. So I got inside that one thought. So, exactly, you guys, what I'm telling you here is that thoughts are problems. It's not necessarily the pictures or what present themselves, whether it is was with this friend or with my business or with money and all these things. It was the thought, me believing in a thought, which caused the illusion of a problem that was never really there, right? So it was me entertaining and making up a story about a thought that caused the illusion over my life. And although I was affirming and knew that I have been successful before, it didn't matter because subconsciously I had started believing in lack, and that loss could be something that I could experience. So before then, like I said, I never once ever considered loss being something that could happen to me because I knew that I identified with success. So I stopped identifying as a successful person and picked up the belief in loss, that loss could occur. And so to invite that in, of course, it had to show itself. And it showed itself with the grievances with people. And so the ego, when the ego needs that story to maintain it, to maintain that ego, right? So I stepped outside of my awareness and into this story and created a story around this. So this is what I mean, you guys, when you're not observing the observer. But that's how it came to be, pretty much, was realizing that. And within that, as I was sitting there at that park, like all of it just dissolved away. It dissolved immediately because now I could see it for what it was, that it wasn't my friend that I had the grievances with. It wasn't my business. It wasn't money. It was the thought of lack or separation that I believed in, which caused all the grievances, right? And so it is forgiveness pretty much ends all suffering and loss, but it's forgiving the thought, not necessarily forgiving the person, because I didn't have to buy into that. I could have just understood that she was going through something, but I picked it up from that one belief. I bought it. I bought that belief and was like, oh, now we're going to suffer because I believe that more than I believe who I am as the source. And so I couldn't see myself or her as we truly are, which is whole and complete, right? So, again, like I said, it was not to forgive her or the others in my life, but to forgive the thought and then identify with my natural state, which was success. It had always been success. And in that time, once I started to move forward after that, after I declared that it benefits everyone in my world when I am successful, that it is my birthright to be successful in whatever I do, whatever I touch. I know this was true. So once I removed that illusion, I could see what was already there, which was my success that was there the whole time. And I had built up that momentum in that story for about a year of loss being possible, that although I started identifying with success again, of course, that perceived loss or lack still showed itself a few times after that, but I didn't react or buy into it because I was able to see the story behind the false appearances, and I could see who I am and they were, right? So I know that before, my belief in loss and grievances and in me being a separate self, needing to do something, needing to fix something, was what the grievances were needed to maintain that story, right? So I started observing my reality as being I am, right? As I was able to see behind those false appearances, my success increased, my peace increased, my joy increased, my money increased. And I realized that ever since then, I haven't lost since then. And also, loss has a different meaning for me now. All right. So, I want you guys to understand this. I want to share this with you because, like I said, sometimes you have to be willing to stop telling yourself that story long enough in order to see the truth of who you really are, or to see the truth of what's really actually appearing here, right? Because again, you're not ever upset for the reason that you think you're upset about your SP, you're upset about the money. And I was upset about all those things. I was upset with my friends, but I was upset really with the fact that I believed in separation. I believed that loss was possible. And like I said, prior to that, it never ever occurred to me, ever, right? So it's not really about sometimes the person, it is about the thoughts that you think about that one thought, which causes the illusion over who you are. So it casted that over my success. And when I realized that it dissolved, I could see what was there the whole time, which was my success and my true nature. All right. So I really wanted to share this with you guys. I really definitely hope that this assists you in some way, and really for you to inquire with yourself about the stories that you are telling yourself, and to really listen to those nudges and listen to your intuition and to your higher self, because it's always speaking. But your ego is in the way, thinking that you know everything and thinking that you need to get inside the story and fix it. But when you pull yourself out of it and do nothing, and really, really do nothing, and ask yourself the truth about who you are, I promise you, if you just relax long enough, it will reveal itself. All right. So, once again, you guys, imagination is on your side. I hope to see you at my I Am Immersion experience next weekend. I cannot wait. It's going to be so amazing. And yeah, you guys, if you would like to book a session with me by phone or email, get down in the description box below. And yeah, I will see you guys on my next video. Bye.